Cool. And we're back. Super excited to be sitting here in the studio today with the one and only minimum wage Tim himself, Tim Frederick. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, super excited to have you today. I've been knowing about you and your coffee for a couple of months now. I think I met you at a Canna Connect event a few months back. But just to give us a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about yourself and the start of Minimum Wage Tim.
Yeah, just from a coffee perspective, I grew up around here in the Twin Cities, but I went to college out in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. And I had a saxophone professor out there that was really into coffee and actually had just moved from KC, and they have a great scene down there. So it was him that introduced me initially to like the AeroPress, which if you know, that's cool.
Very cool
way to make coffee. And that was like my primary method for years. And then the first time he ever loaned me his AeroPress, he gave me this naturally processed coffee that just tastes like strawberries, which just blew my mind at the time. I'd never tasted anything like that. So that's got me interested in just like the brewing aspect, home brewing, and like looking around for coffees that were really good. And then, naturally I started discovering those brands that are really well regarded in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Think Ruby, Wonder State, and then we have like Dogwood Spy House over here.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got really into those. But then as far as roasting, there was a coffee company that started in Eau Claire at the time when I was going to school there. And they had a shop for like a year or so, but that wasn't a big part of it. It was like a lot of wholesale. I don't know if they really did a lot of direct consumer, but they had this cold brew that was bottled. It was in all the grocery stores in town, which was really cool. And they're unfortunately no longer in operation. They were called Soul Brewed Coffee. But that just opened my eyes to the whole roasting thing. And I wouldn't say that I got really into the actual mechanics of roasting. I was in college at the time. I was pretty busy, doing other stuff, studying and whatnot, sort of, I guess.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly studying. I'll say that. I'll say that for the cameras.
Yeah. So sort of like other people that I know, but from the cannabis space, where maybe it was that introduction to good cannabis and sort of seeking out good cannabis that led them into the industry. It was really that seeking out of just like, what is the best coffee that I can get for myself that really sort of guided you down that route?
Right. And it's like, this is where I come from kind of as a musician too. It's like you like certain music so much that you listen to growing up or maybe when you're older that you discover, and you get kind of like, I think the only really word for it is like obsessed with that thing. And then you have this drive, certain people do, and like a generative drive where you see that and you're like, I have to do that thing. I have to make something like that. So when I hear really good music, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. It's like, oh, I want to make something as good as that, which kind of nags at the mind. And, but you can really appreciate it then too, because then you appreciate what goes into it as well. It's just kind of interacting with things on a different level. And a lot of people have their thing that they interact with like that.
So take us through some of your music background as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of artists and things but take us kind of through your own playing journey and what you like and what you're skilled at.
Yeah. I really come from that kind of from a community aspect, and that's why I do coffee as like my thing, because in a lot of ways the community around that is similar to the music community, and that's what a lot of people are initially introduced to music through. Like you start in elementary school or middle school, learning your instrument, and then you're in a little concert band or whatever, and you like being in with that same group of people all the time, and then maybe when you're in like high school or something, you start making your own little bands with your friends and things like that. I started playing saxophone like in 5th grade. And it's one of those things where you just kind of have a competence. I was like, I really like this. And then I got really into Charlie Parker and like all the old like, bebop kind of jazz, like straight ahead jazz kind of thing. And did that in high school and made a lot of friends just around the Twin Cities by being in this like audition band that started by this awesome dude named David Mitchell. That just like this, I don't know, he's probably like a middle-aged dude, plays saxophone, but he had a career in like tech or something, and he was able to retire at a pretty early age. And then he used his time basically to build these big bands that kids from around the Twin Cities could audition for. And there was like a band 1, 2, 3. And so I did it when I was a sophomore and was in 3 and then 2 and then 1. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people. And I like went to college with a lot of them and played music. A lot of people from those groups went to the East or West Coast, LA, New York. And then kind of the rest of us that stayed around here, a lot of us went to Eau Claire because there's a really good music, kind of I would call it studio music program, like big band and playing in recording studios and things like that, just that kind of professional musician type vibe. I was doing that, playing saxophone, was really serious about it. I ended up studying full-time in the saxophone studio where I had that professor that introduced me to coffee. So
wow. So what
really
did the degree end up as?
Well, so I got my major in economics, and then I just got a minor. But I was able to, because of the time that I started before they transitioned purely to like a classical saxophone degree, which I still had to do my juries, which is like your end of the semester, is like your final, kind of like your playing final. I still had to do that classical repertoire for that because I was like full time in the studio. But I only got the minor like a thing, and then I got my major in economics.
Okay, right on, right on. Now, economics, how does that transition, and go a little longer and deeper with us as far as like the supply chain goes with your coffee? Like, you understand it as a commodity, but you also are super, like, you appreciate the craft and the small batchness, and take us through like where your coffee comes from.
Yeah, the thing that got me into that, like, that's been the most exciting thing since moving. Just with the coffee, I started roasting, and I was at home, and eventually I moved to a larger space, which is like a collective of roasters, like the smaller, like, you know, a lot of them are bigger than me, but they're, you know, kind of your local small batch roasters. We all got together, and it was through them that I met a lot of the people that I'm sourcing my coffee through now. And then, you know, those harvests, they come once a year, sometimes twice, and some places, you know, it's kind of throughout the year. But each time they have a new harvest, everyone's kind of reaching out again and sending out their samples and maybe visiting town. And every time that happens, I'm able to meet, you know, a new group of people that are the ones that are kind of going to be coming out here and visiting, or they have a connection to here. A lot of my coffees have been from Honduras, and very early on, I got connected with a guy named Andros, who he grew up in Honduras, and he sources it, and now he imports coffees from just a few different producers there, and he works very closely with the farmers and visits. And I was able to FaceTime one of them that I've been buying coffee from this past couple of months. You know, I was able to talk to him a few weeks ago, and just like having that special connection where it's like, yeah, I mean, he's very available. You know, if you're a coffee roaster and you're going to buy some coffee, like, he is going to kind of go that extra mile and really like make sure you have everything you need. We just kind of connected on a little bit of a personal level, and we're kind of just friends. He went to school here. He worked here for a long time. He lived here in Minneapolis. And then, so it's just kind of a number of people like that. You know, I could keep talking about each individual person, and I've been able to get like some different coffees from each source. And then we're very fortunate to have a big importer here in town, which I haven't worked with a ton in the past year, but I'll probably continue to do just for, you know, the logistics. The economics wise, it's funny. I did go actually work in supply chain, the supply chain area after college. I worked at a company where I did intermodal transport. Basically, I was like managing these accounts where we put stuff on trains and sent it back in containers and all that. But I would say that's not my area of expertise in coffee. It's a whole different world. Yeah, we did like White Claw, like can't you know, it wasn't things like that, you know, like seltzers and things of that nature.
You can tell community is important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I can totally.
I'm just chasing that. Yeah.
Thinking the same thing. You see that in music, you see it in coffee, you see it in cannabis, whatever it be, it's sort of finding that sense of community. It's really
and
cool.
It was music people. I guess I could shout out my friend Maddie Thies, who is a bass player here in town. We connected over music when I was just very first started putting my coffee out there, and then it was they ended up They had worked at SK and ended up connecting me with a lot of coffee people that way, and that was eventually through a series of events ended up how I ended up getting into the collective.
Very cool.
So it's just like it came from that coffee, the music community initially.
That's neat. Yeah, I have a connection to SK too. It's cool sort of being here in the Twin Cities and having so many great like coffee just like so much high quality coffee. I feel like I go to other cities and maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but there's sort of that deficit of that. Love being here in the cities.
It's very welcoming to newcomers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I kind of came on the scene and everyone has their own niche and their own very specific voice. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know, there's definitely a community over competition feeling amongst everybody. We all hang out. I would consider all of us to be at least decently good friends at this point. Like we just see each other so much in the roastery and we're, you know, in the same thing. You know, there's not a ton of people that are either production roasters running a business. You know, sometimes it's just like between entrepreneurs, like the way that we all connect. But there's also that added element of we also do coffee. You know,
that's
so
cool.
We really talk a lot.
That's really cool. So you're our first guest that we've had on this show that is not in the cannabis industry, be it an ancillary business, be it, trying to run a grow or any of the side of the cannabis industry that is multifaceted these days. I'm curious to ask you, what is your relationship with cannabis? I mean, we've talked personally at a couple of these events, but if you go to like the Minimum Wage Tim website, it's not like there's like the THC coffee product. What is your connection to cannabis? I mean, we know it, but tell them.
Yes, of course. I've always been interested, but when legalization rolled around, that was right when I was starting up, and I think really I had been connected to a few people in the industry beforehand, but when it really ramped up was Bob from Cannajoy. I was at the Nokomis Farmers Market, which is just down the road from their store in South Minneapolis, and he just comes barreling in, I see this dude just walking head on, like straight toward my booth, like with a vengeance, and he comes up and he's like, "Oh, a coffee vendor? Like you're from here?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I was roasting in my garage, actually, just like kind of right over there until I moved into a bigger space. So I got a whole thing going. Here's my like subscription program." He's like, "Oh, you use subscriptions? Like, do you think this is something we could just like serve in our store?" I was like, "Oh," like he was just like right away into that. I'm like, I never really had thought of that too much. I hadn't really gotten any wholesale at that point.
Bob's the man.
Bob's the man. He's just so enthusiastic about bringing people up. He's been very successful with his store. Him and Aaron, like the two of them together and their whole crew, they're just like very dynamic. So I mean, he's just like trying to pull other people up along with him.
Let's stay there for a second. Like you both have had community events at Cannajoy. Like, what is it about that space that creates such good feelings and vibes?
I feel like it's just sort of every component being thoughtfully constructed together. You look at the art and it's not just, hey, we had to fill the wall with stuff, so we went to Goodwill and threw some art on the wall. But all of it is either created by Aaron or another local artist. It's, stickers from all the people that they've worked with. It's coffee from local coffee roasters. It's seeds from local seed company. I feel like it's brick by brick that building is local community.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about you, Tim? Like, what do you notice? What are your takeaways? You were just there on Saturday, right? So.
Yes, yeah, and I was there the Thursday before.
We ran into each other for sure.
Yeah, I was delivering the coffee. Yeah. They do the legwork of actually being in the store and talking to people. Like, that's the reason that they can have the coffee. Aaron always says when I come in, he's like, "Oh, we went through a bunch this week. Like, a bunch of people came in looking at seeds, and when you're doing that, you're not just coming in and picking up like some edibles and leaving. You're looking for something that you're going to tend to and grow and like really care about. So you want to hear about it, and who better to ask than like them? They're experts in this.
Have a cup of coffee, ask some
and
questions.
You have a coffee. Yeah, it's like that's why they go through a bunch. It's like, well, we had a bunch of seed people and they stayed for a while and then went through the coffee. It's like, so it's just kind of a natural fit there. It just like literally just on a basis of, hey, we'll sign up for your subscription. I put like a grinder in there. Like just a home grinder, because they go through just a couple drip machine things a day.
Yeah,
so you can go in there anytime. And
they pack a couple bowls.
Yeah, they pack a couple bowls worth of coffee.
I love that. Yeah, I've been in there a couple of times, and it's always nice knowing that when you walk in, there's not just going to be seeds and product, which is great, but there's a hot cup of coffee just sort of waiting for you, and it's really good.
There's always people on the couches just like talking in that back bar area, which is where we did our event on Saturday. So I was doing a pour over thing where I just basically was sampling and putting a face, if they've seen me before, and it was great having the Midwest Cannabis Professionals thing going on.
Yeah, well. Shout out to Alicia. Honestly, Saturday morning was like my only day off. It's been hard for me to make some of those, but I just go so hard M through F, and then Saturday morning I'm just like, please just let me stay home. But for those who don't work in cannabis 24/7, like you should definitely check out Cannajoy and the Midwest Cannabis Professionals, because they're having, I think, bi-monthly meetups there now. I think they've switched over now to just hosting at Cannajoy and utilizing your coffee, right?
Yep, that's going to be only minimum wage Tim's coffee. So if you want to just come by there on every other Saturday, a bunch of cannabis professionals getting together. So if you're a professional or if you're not, it can be valuable. I've gotten so much out of, even though I don't grow at home, I'm not in the industry. I've gotten out a lot out of being, associated with yourselves and like coming to your classes. Like that living soil class a couple weeks ago was really instructive. That was heavy.
Oh yeah, drinking from the fire hose, that's for sure.
Modest, like one piece of feedback, like going off that class was like, there's going to be less dirt at the next one, right? Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, just to turn it around a little bit, but staying on cannabis, Tim, let's talk about how we got connected. You know, Canna Connect, Minimum Wage Tim, you were at our cleanup events. I think that's when you met Tanner for the first time. And then we met through David and some of the Friday morning, what was I calling that? The coffee and cannabis, which we did with Greenspoon Martyr. And on the back half of that, we utilized Minimum Wage Tim and your team. So, you know, that's probably how we met through Hemp House, right? Through connections over there at the Hemp House.
It was, yeah, through David, yeah. I had, after starting to work with CannaJoy, I was just kind of interested in the space, and a very good friend of mine, actually, that, you know, those high school Twin Cities audition bands that I was talking about, we were the 2 tenor players in a lot of those bands, and in college. Cool. But he's been with Hemp House since they started. So I was like, oh, hey, can you just introduce me to like whoever is the leadership or just people that are doing stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I talked to David, which is great. And then since then I've gotten to know Dalton pretty well. And he was there on Saturday with me. And so that very first coffee event, we did a collaboration with Fizzy.
Yes. Fizzy cold brew.
Yeah. And I did some cocktails, and this is going to be coming back at some point. I did some cocktails, a cold fashioned, I called it. You can't really call it a mocktail because there's THC in there.
Right. I mean, actually, I do want to have someone on from the non-alcoholic community at some point to talk about where the line is drawn when it comes to THC, mocktail, no alcohol.
Just having that conversation at Modest with a good friend of ours.
That's an ongoing discussion?
It is. Well, in Minnesota especially.
Yeah. I think it's people that maybe have taken the mindset of NA as I'm not consuming intoxicants versus other people that have taken it as alcohol isn't good for me and I don't want alcohol, and sort of trying to find the bridge of this community that brings people together, really sort of 2 different viewpoints, but can unite in a illegal state. But now that you can get cannabis beverages, does a cannabis beverage count as NA?
Can see it both ways.
I'm starting to call it mini sober.
Ah, there we go.
Because we're just a little sober. We're not all the way
just
sober.
a little bit. Just a little bit.
Appropriating California sober.
Well, what else should we talk about, Tim? I mean, it's been absolutely great to like get to know you over these last 4 or 5 months. Like it's gone really fast, but we've enjoyed it, and you show up and you do such a great job when you come, and we appreciate it.
Well, it's been, you know, really great for me just being in this space with people that are also really driven because it is a new industry. So there's a lot of people in the space just hitting the ground running, and the people are super excited about it, like having these events. And for me, I like to do, you know, farmers markets. I like to do samplings in the cafes that carry my coffee, because those are groups of people that when you're just one person, you got to be really effective about where you're spending your time. So if I'm going to go sit somewhere for 3-4 hours or less even, and like be sampling coffee and talking to people, I want those people to be predisposed to my message. So either they're already at a coffee shop, so okay, they drink coffee, that's a good start. The cannabis connection I think is very obvious to me, though it may seem a little more out there. It's, you know, these people that are taking the time to go to a class where they're learning about how to grow their cannabis and take care about what they're consuming and what they're growing are naturally predisposed to at least being interested in knowing a lot about where their coffee comes from, which is the backbone of my brand, and that's the backbone of a lot of specialty coffee these days, which is great. A lot of people talking about it, and a lot of farmers, for better or worse, are like very, you know, willing to put their story out there. And, you know, we got to be careful about sometimes, you know, just throwing that out there and being like, okay, yeah, I know this person when we don't really. But there's a lot of really cool transparency stuff going on in coffee, and we're continuing to move in that direction. But that sort of thing is really interesting to someone that wants to know where their food, where their cannabis comes from, and all these people are interested in it. I've had a lot of really good conversations and learned a lot of things myself.
Very cool.
Like when I went to that class at Modest the other day.
Yeah. So create a scene for our listeners, our viewers, if you will. I think describe for us a type of coffee, a method of coffee consumption, be it like pour over, insta brew, whatever you're looking for, and then music to listen to. Sort of create like a Saturday morning. We're looking to relax a little bit. What would you recommend for people?
Yeah, hi-fi lounge. I mean, get.
Do I go with a deep cut record or something that would be awesome? You know what? I'll do something that I listen. No, I'm not going with the deep cut at all. I'm
Okay,
going with an awesome record because it was super sunny last Saturday. I don't know if you remember that. I was building one of those particle board dressers.
Cool.
So I made myself a little bit of coffee, and I put on a record. So I made myself the Burundi Nigashiro naturally processed coffee. Now I'm putting out a video pretty soon on that where we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But that's kind of been my flagship East African coffee. I have categories. Latin America, East Africa, and Indo-Pacific kind of covers all the parts of the world where you have coffee. Just to have some sort of framework where I can rotate things out and have people trying new things with some sort of context behind it. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So we got, we're setting the scene.
We're setting the scene. We're setting the scene. I was thinking about my coffee too much.
No, I love it. I love it.
We're
It's
setting
great.
the scene. And you know what I put on? I put on pet sounds.
Okay, there we go.
Awesome.
Classic
awesome.
Beach Boys. Love it.
And there's
For
some
sure.
of that Barry sax in there, and I followed it up with it's that Sturgill Simpson record with like horns on it, with the Daft Kings on it, because I needed some more of that Barry sax.
I love that sound.
Sweet.
Okay, so Tim, you're going to be joining us at Canna Connect on April 6th. Actually, in the Speakeasy, we're going to be brewing like cold brew cocktails. We're going to have some 4 Canna beverages available.
Sweet.
It's Canna Connect for the people, right? So we're taking care of the coffee. We're taking care of the beverages. People can come experience Minimum Wage Tim's and the new Canna Connect beverage. Have you thought about that a little bit more? And can you share any details about what you might be teasing in April?
Oh yeah, I got all my cold brew cocktails coming back. I've been thinking about them all winter.
The Timmy Tonic?
The Timmy Tonic, the Timmy Palmer. I'll leave you to guess what that might be.
Legally, we can't say on this
Can't
podcast.
say.
No.
Dead billionaire. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll connect 4 and they'll figure it out.
There we go. I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. We so appreciate it. We'll have you back again more, if not for any other reason than just to drink some really good coffee. Obviously, people can go to CannaJoy, try your coffee. Where would you send people to learn a little bit more about your brand, maybe to order some coffee for themselves?
Of course, yeah. MinimumWageTims.com is the spot. I put everything on there. I have subscription plans. If you live in the city of Minneapolis, I will deliver for free. I have a route, like a paper boy. Yep.
Nice.
And so the subscription plans are my main thing, but I always have new coffees, so you can always keep checking back and seeing what I have and order, bag by bag if you want to just try certain things. And then you can also find a few of my coffees at Rustica Bakery, Southdale, in Edina in the mall, and then also in Westlake.
Yeah.
There by the
formerly Calhoun Square, the Calhoun, or
no, it's not that. It's the, what do you call it?
near the Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
near
that thing.
Lake Bede-Makaska.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Over there. And Cosmic Coffee in Northeast.
I went there finally. I saw it, and we're connected now.
That's good. You're kind of connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Tim, we're Canna Connected. Thank you for coming on the show, and we can't wait to see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.